idea of mint.
Yes.
And the N in mint is for Nigeria. So, he has also identified Nigeria as a high potential country. Now, that we still have to make sure that we realize that potential. The growth of 7%, and I said that to emphasize that, we haven't done badly in the last decade. I believe that GDP per capita has increased from about $1,000 per head to about $2,500 per head in the last decade as well. But, we could do better. Many economists believe that, if the power sector starts to, act as it should do, or as we would like it to, that could add 2 or 3 points to Nigeria's GDP growth. Now, China, in the same sort of period, has grown by an average of about 10%. And if power reforms work the way we hope they will, it could, I'm not saying it will, but it could take Nigeria to the growth rates that have been seen in China, at least close to those growth rates. And then, we should start to see, a much more visible positive impact from those growth rates.
These rates are, well, for me, and I'm sure for most Nigerians out there, they're neither here nor there, because they don't see anything. And when we talk about job creation, we're also looking at foreign investments coming in. Even though we always say that SMEs are the ones that really drive the economy, but how many SMEs actually thrive in Nigeria in the face of all the challenges that he has spoken about?
I call it the SME conundrum, in the sense that everybody says SMEs drive an economy. SMEs employ 2 people here, 10 people there. Okay. If you really look deep down, you will see that SMEs as a class come and go in every economy. The same happens in Nigeria. I'm sure, I'm very convinced that there are more SMEs coming up every day in Nigeria. The issue is that...
do they survive?
The SFB survival factor is a major issue in every economy. So why should Nigeria be any different? That is the nature of SMEs. The issue really is that I don't know how many of you actually spend time in villages in Nigeria. When you do spend time, what you're going to see is, if you've been away for like 18 months and you come back, you see new houses. You see new motorcycles. But we keep saying, no, the growth is not percolating. I'm not saying that it is percolating. It's not percolating as quickly as we want it. And like he says, without that infrastructure, that uptick is not going to be there. But with the infrastructure, further investments in infrastructure, and an uptick in infrastructure, we're going to see an uptick in the percolation of that 7% to more people in the urban and the rural areas, because that's where about 60% of our people actually live. So I think that when we're talking SMEs, we forget that we need to be looking at both the urban areas and the rural areas. And I'm not sure that we fully capture the full picture in the rural areas when we're looking at the percolation. Now, I'm one of those who actually believe very strongly that we're not doing enough at the grassroots level, which is in the rural areas. Okay, but when you think about that, you ask yourself the question: so who's supposed to be doing this? Is it the federal government? Is it the state government or the local government, or the ordinary businessman? The ordinary businessman exists at every level, whether the rural level or the urban level. And those are the SMEs you're talking about. So if you are capturing only the data of the people you see and not the people you don't see, we can't really connect. I'm clear in my mind that there is a disconnect. For example, I was in Delta State 2 weeks ago, and I saw a brochure, very nicely done brochure, of the state government's investments in supporting microfinance, to provide finance for activity at the grassroots level. I was amazed, really, really, really amazed. I don't know the degree of success they've enjoyed, But I'm trying to say, if governments at the state level, yeah, begin to address some of these challenges of the percolation of this growth to the grassroots, we will begin to see more traction. We will begin to even measure it some more because we can see it. So I think that intervention at whatever level, whether state level or local government level, plus individual businesses, it's one of the things that we must use as a tool, one, to try and create that visibility for the other economy that we don't see, and secondly, to look at how we link that up at the macro level, because I think that the fact that we haven't got major economic turmoil like you have in North Africa, it shouldn't be a matter for complacency, because at the end of the day, what you really want is to carry the message with data you can support that the growth is actually inclusive growth. It's just that we're not seeing it.
Let me pick you up very quickly on the issue of data and gathering of it and statistics that we use. It's often said that if you don't have statistics, your planning is going to be flawed. And in Nigeria, you're talking of not capturing or not being able to properly capture the data about that 65% that lives in the rural area, or 60%, or let's even arguably say 55%. If you have more than half the population in rural areas and we don't capture the data or the statistics properly, how do we begin to plan properly?
Another conundrum. I agree that a lot still needs to be done. But you see, we need to understand that what we have is a challenge between what should you invest in for the medium to long term, okay, and what do you visibly invest in, where the electorate will quite happily say, oh yeah, we saw you did this, you did a road, or you did this. All of these soft issues are also, in my view, infrastructure, except it's a soft infrastructure. And I don't think that soft infrastructure or intellectual infrastructure is actually receiving sufficient attention at the governance level, because you need to invest well enough in the economy. How many state governments have a total picture of the economy of their state? How many?
I don't think there's any today. Because
Lagos has some. Lagos has some. I know. I work with them. But is it enough? I don't think it's enough. Because the point is, I'm not saying that you need to plan at such a macro level. But I'm saying that for you to have interventions, economic interventions, at the state level or local government level, you need to understand that economy. Okay, and if you want to plan it properly, you need to have data. You can begin to build that data. It doesn't take that much money. It takes patience and that continuous investment. If you don't invest in it, you're not going to get the data. So we've all been talking about it all these years.
Yeah, I think this is a very important point that you've hit upon, which is the following, that people tend to be praised as politicians for very visible things like a building that they're opening, or a bridge or a road or something like that. But actually, if you're looking at the long-term future of this country, what is really much more important is building institutions, whether it's institutions around data gathering, whether it's institutions around justice, whether it's institutions around education, whether it's how your power industry is structured so that in the long term it's financially sustainable. These things don't get, frankly, sufficient attention or sufficient praise from the media, from commentators, and from the populace. And in a democracy, politicians go towards the things that they get visible returns for. So I think that this is something that we also need to think about, because we talked about youth unemployment and bringing people into the workforce. One of the reasons why Nigeria is now a mint country frankly, is because of our large population. And if you notice,